All right, good morning, guys. Got my microphone off mute and we're ready to go. A few of you already in. All right. So, good morning. Welcome to the trade findings and adjustments of October 15th. You guys know me, I'm Keith Bybee. A couple of you email me from time to time, ask questions. Please feel free to do so. I enjoy it. So to start out this morning, you can see a bit of a sell-off from the last 3 days. It's kind of continuing on. I've thought through some possible trades and kind of went through a few ideas as I was sitting here preparing. But I think the most important question that will hopefully guide the thought process and discussion this morning is just simply asking the question to you guys that what direction is the market heading? Can anybody tell me what direction is the market heading? I'm not asking you to tell me where you think it's going to head. I'm simply asking what direction is it currently heading? What do you guys think? Got the S&P up right now. Are we in a bullish trend? Are we in a sideways trend? Are we peaking and heading into a bearish trend? One comment, heading who knows where. Uncertain. All right, so my thought is that I kind of agree. Where are we heading? Is anyone's guess. So just taking a look at the chart here, you could say, well, one more comment, depends on stimulus. Thank you, Ida. Great comment. Let me circle back to that. Technically, here we go. See if I can annotate. You can say, well, look, we get a line. Trend line. Oh, come on. Why is this not working? All right, forget it. I'm just going to use my other pen right here. You can make this argument that we're kind of moving in a shorter term trend this way, previously coming down this way, or maybe we're just in a month and a half long, 2-month long sideways. But you know what? None of what has happened in the last month and a half tells me really anything useful, which is why I tend to agree with the sentiment of William here with the comment I got. William, where are you? But that it's all anyone's guess. We really don't have a direction, I guess, is my long point that I'm trying to make. We don't have anything technically that's driving any of this. Why would it stop in the middle of a 50 and 200? We certainly know Ida coming back to you depends on stimulus. We know at the beginning of September, through August, we had all of the call buying by the Japan SoftBank, which pushed the market up another 8%, just a ridiculous amount. And at the end of the summer, we were hoping for another stimulus. And of course, end of August, rather. That didn't happen, and really that's been the story ever since. But again, do we have a direction? So I'll put it that way. There's really nothing that I can see that tells me we have a direction one way or another. We have so much uncertainty in the market on the presidential election. Really the only thing, again, back to you, Ida, that could push things up or start to before the election is a new stimulus. Or even that there's news that they finally come to an agreement. Doesn't necessarily have to be passed, I wouldn't think, right before the election. Any news that it's agreed upon, of course, things are heading a different way than they are today. But why is this important? Why am I trying to kind of beat this into the stone? To give you guys a trade or a recommendation, it's really kind of difficult when we have no freaking clue what direction the market is really taking. There's nothing technically, especially from a technical standpoint, looking at a chart that I can say that really helps us out, really gives me a ton of confidence that I can make a good recommendation. So at that point, what is the thought process? Well, Keeve, wouldn't you want to get into something before a stimulus package? What if we get a stimulus package tomorrow? Well, that's something we don't know today. We don't know if we're going to get it, if it's going to come tomorrow. So maybe that's a stupid question, but just for thought process sake, I would think a good trade would be placed after that point. Well, if we get a stimulus package tomorrow, agreed upon, tomorrow's a great day. To put on a trade. But we don't have that right now. We don't have a technical direction. We don't have anything but uncertainty right now. And if anyone believes that someone like Nancy Pelosi is going to come in and do something that's going to probably help Trump's reelection, I don't know. We've seen for the last month and a half that even a considerable negotiation on the Republican side and the president's side, and Mnuchin to come up, raise their prices, raise their dollar figures on new stimulus, and it has kind of been scoffed at and noses thumbed at. Not that it couldn't happen. Could be considered a big win for the Democrats of getting the Republicans to come up so much higher. But again, what if that happens tomorrow? I'd say tomorrow is a great day to put on a bullish trade. So, what is our thought process today? Well, I keep going back to thinking about when we really don't have a direction, trading is really not the name of the game. It's simply just focusing on investing. What are the things that, whether or not we get a re-election of a market-friendly Trump or a big spending Biden, what is going to allow us to be able to get through that period of time and be okay if we have to dollar cost average a position, things come down? What are we going to be okay if things just start to head up quite sharply? As far as concerning a recommendation for you guys. So I thought about an Apple. Of course, we always like to come back to Apple, and with such amazing gains for the year, it's not necessarily not necessarily something that I guess I would say has the biggest opportunity because of how far it's and how quickly it's come up, how well it's done through this pandemic is more positive, though, for me. Um, how much money they continue to have to buy back shares. If you remember a couple, um, well, beginning of September when we went over a lot of Apple, question was, oh, well, why are they heading up so quickly after that? Why are they heading up so quickly after that share split, only to see things fall again? Of course, we know much of that was due to their spending, buying back their own shares. Lee, I'm glad you mentioned that. Apple trying to put out first 5G phones. So I would think that some of this last couple of weeks rather, rally to hold on to that 50-day has something to do with hope of the super cycle and 5G phones coming out. Let me just, before I type that in, let me just put a couple of these things I've said. So buy back. So their share buyback really wasn't enough to keep things going post the split, but it's still always something that helps them and acts as kind of a put. So Lee, you mentioned 5G phones that they're putting out. And I'm going to say 5G phones, and everybody keeps talking about this super cycle, which is basically that it's that time for all of these old phones to be done away and new, all the people ready to upgrade to new phones. You've got the 5G, all of this new technology that should make things faster. So Lee, what I'm going to tell you is I do think the talk of the 5G and the super cycle is what has kind of held things up more recently for Apple this last month. However, I don't really buy into this idea up necessarily of a super cycle. 5G technology really isn't wide and broad enough. It's only in a few cities across the nation. I don't even think that the new iPhone 12 with the 5G is really truly 5G, as it's nobody really says exactly what it is. Just new technology really hasn't come into its own yet, and it's more probably, I would say, a marketing thing at this point. So I wouldn't expect to see tons of I wouldn't expect that it's going to make these phones incredibly more fast. So not necessarily buying into that, but they should certainly sell some good amount of phones. But I thought about this as a potential trade where they've done fairly well dealing with different presidencies. They understand as a company how to deliver for shareholders. But I would hope a lot of you have something in the nature of something bullish on Apple that you can kind of hold on to and just work through this certain period with holding on to it. If you don't, maybe something in the nature of a few leaps out for as long as you can, a couple of years, and leaving yourself some room to buy more to dollar cost average. But I'm not sure that again, this is the best opportunity. It's just gone up so much that everybody loves it. It's Apple, so much name recognition. It's kind of a hard one if you don't have something in it. You gotta at least take a look at it. But what I'm a little more interested in is what if there's something on one of these Under Armour, JP Morgan, some of these other stocks that really haven't made their run that could possibly. I know if you guys have been following along, there was an Under Armour leap, and this was from the previous, I wrote this from the previous time I was on back in beginning of September. We had a couple of leaps down, I think like at 11, or like at least when I was trading at 11, that we had talked about leaps up at $20 or so, 20 strike leaps that were incredibly cheap that you could have taken off for a profit. My thought process is, hey, they've finally broken above a 200-day. They're kind of breaking the market trend. We do certainly have a Christmas rally that maybe Under Armour could be benefiting from. We have, I would think, on the other hand, we've got August rally, which maybe was most of that pre-Christmas buying, at least in stock. So that doesn't really necessarily help us with that idea that Under Armour is heading up for Christmas rally, but it didn't participate in that August rally really. So maybe that's a reason that it's worth looking at. It's certainly nowhere near pre-crash. Let's see, let me go back a year. A $17 resistance level is really the only thing I can see apart for a nearer term pivot point here on the R2 pivot point at 1386 that is going to be in the way of Under Armour heading up. It's already gotten beat up. If I were to think about something something that could do well through I guess a Trump or Biden. I don't know. Biden's gonna try and take off tax breaks, which is gonna just hurt everything. But I guess what I'm trying to say is it's already gotten beat up and it really hasn't gotten back to any previous levels. So chances are you'll be at least able to dollar cost average something like an Under Armour if it falls a little easier than something like Apple if it were to fall, or a bunch of stuff that's rallied so much and really hasn't justified it. Nike up at all-time highs, and again, we've talked about this many times, but Under Armour still hasn't gotten back up to previous highs. Nike has, and Under Armour has beaten earnings and still hasn't gotten anywhere near their all-time highs. Nike has. I was going to put over here, not buying the story. It's hype on the 5G, not necessarily something to be falling in love with Apple for. Under Armour, if you had taken profits on those Under Armour leaps, if anyone has done those, congratulations. Not a bad trade for a few days here back mid-September, end of September. If my memory serves me correct, maybe it was closer to beginning of September, but either way, we're now in a little different scenario where we are breaking over some heavy resistance on that 200-day, holding a pivot point, breaking market trend. Those are some things I like, with of course the caveat that of course our market doesn't have a trend, so much uncertainty. So rather than doing something short term, of course, again, I'm going to suggest this is something further out in time. Well, let me put some bullet points down here. Cheap leaps. So another question here is, or is this something that you can wait on? Until after a stimulus or election? Could it head up dramatically after either of those? It sure could. It wouldn't be the worst thing to wait, especially if you're considering all of the other stuff, trades, investments you have right now. I still like Under Armour. I still like the upside, but it might not be something for you if you're seriously looking at the real risks. If we don't get stimulus, if we don't get a market-friendly president, really nothing seems to stick out until either of those have been decided. I will say I do like the trade that Kevin said. From last Tuesday. Holding 100 still. Bouncing off a 50-day. Of course, that's not really important for the long term, but well, it's important, but not necessarily important for, I guess I'm saying these are just short-term movements, but it's very positive in my eyes that it is above 100 and certainly would need to see JP Morgan break above that 200-day at some point, which is where I would like it much better. But I understand that's why Kevin probably put on an idea for the calendar spread where we have the potential of going up and taking advantage of a JP Morgan that still hasn't gotten back up to previous highs. But with a little bit of credit there on a portion of that time frame where you can sort of hedge your bet a little bit. Let's see. It was, let's bring it up. Here we are, JP Morgan. It was January 22 long, 55 strike against a January 21 with 115 short. So you can go back to that one. I like it. To kind of circle back and give you some final thoughts, you kind of hear me hesitate to really give a thumbs up or a thumbs down, and it's really just has to do with where is our direction, and the fact we don't have a direction, the fact we don't know if we're going to get a stimulus anytime soon. We don't know who's going to be president in a few weeks. And as I have gone through my positions and things, I really don't have a huge enthusiasm for a ton of risk right now. So why in the hell would I really be gung-ho about telling you guys with any incredible confidence what you could do for the near term? So again, and I hate to be a broken record, but I like to try and give some ideas on some possibilities you could do, but really it's the same old story of you're gonna need some time. You're gonna need to go out in time and give yourself the ability to make sure you're going to be all right, whichever direction that the markets decide to head in the weeks ahead. I'm pretty sure a lot of people have tried to trade these last month and a half to try and pick a direction and have lost so much money. Looking at you, Robinhood traders, there just isn't a direction, and I'm sure anyone that's gone for credit to take advantage of the high volatility is probably upside down or struggling, or anyone who's tried to put on a bullish position in a short-term fashion guessed the wrong direction, because there is no, this doesn't tell me anything. It's just, that doesn't tell me anything. These days didn't tell me anything other than to have protection on. This doesn't tell me anything. It is a pivot point support, but it's the middle of the 250-day. No reason it couldn't have gone down and tested the 200. The fact that it's gone up, I mean, is that because of stimulus hopes? Maybe, probably, because we're certainly not holding that as of today. So if you feel like I'm kind of being indecisive with you, those are some reasons why. I guess my general advice is take a look at what you've got and ask yourself if you really need to put more risk on the table. And if you feel like you can, you have enough time, you have enough money on the side that you can weather some of these storms, particularly like an Under Armour that you might want to hold if you had some room. Not a terrible idea, but I can also come back with maybe not worth the risk of trying to jump the gun. And you could still profit from any of these after a stimulus is decided on. Again, if we get stimulus tomorrow, go for it. Think about what you could add. Trying to think through other ideas. I've also thought of naked puts as an idea with something. Just to take advantage of some of the volatility. If there was something you really would love to get into, like an Apple or a Under Armour, and you had enough room in your account, you're really thinking about let me try this again. Apple. If you really have all sorts of room in your accounts and you're willing to take stock ownership of something that you've been wanting to get in for a long time, say an Apple, then go down a ways, go down to a 90, 88, something down where if it really sells off, you're okay taking stock ownership on and getting paid to do it for a period of time. And or if it goes the other way, you can still profit. Problem with naked puts is you're going to be held with a lot of margin in your account so that you can come good on your contract to buy shares of stock if it falls. So I'll say not a bad idea to get into a stock that has run up and you'd love to have on a drop. You'd love to buy shares on a drop. Problems. Let me get back to that IDA. Problems with naked puts, holds a lot of margin in your account, meaning you're going to have a lot of cash available because you don't want to go into margin, as in credit. All right. IDA, quote from chat room. McConnell rejects higher amount for COVID-19 stimulus, says his planned $500 billion bill is the appropriate response. Well, there you go. So it's not looking positive for a new stimulus. Guys, I think that's it for me. Are there any other thoughts or questions about anything I've said or ideas you'd like me to think about? Let me see. Get this. Just wanted to check real quick on what these leaps are now for. So it was the 2250s, I think. Way out there for January 22, 2250s. I think they were like 65 cents when we talked about them before, when Under Armour's down at 11. Still pretty darn cheap. These are for you guys that really are aching to put more money to work for something that has not run up and that is cheap. Yes, Apple trying to put out first 5G phones. Lee, I think we kind of went over that. They are going to be 5G. It's just whether, the question is whether it's like a true 5G, or that the technology has quote unquote gotten there enough to really be leaps and bounds faster than LTE. And I don't think it has. All right, guys. No other questions. That's it for me. Thanks for joining me. Please be safe and don't feel, again, like you have to do anything, especially if you've already got investments on the table working for you. be protective if you have some shares. And boy, these next couple of weeks are going to be very exciting. All right, guys, thanks so much. Have a good weekend. Thanks for joining me. Bye.